That night, I counted every dollar draining from my account's 15 million, gone in 7 minutes. My daughter sent exactly one message. Mum, consider this family money. The next morning, she discovered a chilling truth: those accounts weren't in my name. And the legal owner, someone she'd never dared to cross. I should have been devastated, watching my life's work vanish at 11:43 p. Instead, I poured myself chamomile tea and waited. Because sometimes, the best revenge is letting your enemy think they've already won. My name is Maggie Hart, 62 years old, former COO of Ravenhill Senior Care Cooperative here in Silverbrook, Ohio. I built my life on reading people their needs, their fears, their hidden agendas. You don't survive 30 years in senior care administration without developing a sixth sense for when someone's playing angles. That Tuesday evening in March, as I lay on my garage floor with blood seeping from a gash above my eyebrow, I knew my daughter Tara wasn't rushing to my side out of concern. Mum, oh my God, don't move. Tara's voice carried that practiced urgency she'd perfected during her debate team days. At 35, she still performed emotions rather than felt them. Her heels clicked against the concrete designer shoes that cost more than most people's mortgage payments, courtesy of her husband Grayson's alternative investment ventures. The fall had been genuine enough, oil slick from my ancient Buick, a moment's distraction thinking about the Ravenhill board meeting notes, and down I went. The concussion was mild. The doctor at Silverbrook General confirmed after 2 hours of tests. But Tara transformed those 2 hours into a campaign. We need to talk about your safety. Mum, she said, arranging papers across my kitchen table at 9:15 p.m. while I held an ice pack to my temple. Living alone at your age. My age. I interrupted. I ran a $200 million operation until last year. Exactly. Until last year. She slid a document toward me, mixed seamlessly with the discharge papers from the hospital. Grayson's mother. You know Loretta, she's been through this with her sister. One fall leads to another. We need safeguards. Loretta Whitfield. Silverbrook's self-appointed patron saint of charitable causes, whose perfectly styled silver hair and pearl necklaces disguised a woman who'd strong-armed her way onto every non-profit board in the county. She'd tried to push me out of Ravenhill twice, citing fresh perspectives needed. I'd outlasted her both times. These are just precautionary documents, Tara continued, her manicured finger tracing lines of text I couldn't quite focus on through the headache. Medical power of attorney, some insurance forms, standard stuff. The kitchen smelled of disinfectant from where Tara had obsessively cleaned blood droplets I'd tracked in. She'd arrived within minutes of my call, suspicious timing for someone who lived 40 minutes away in Westbrook Heights. Her phone had been lighting up with messages from Grayson all evening, quick glances that she thought I didn't catch. I should read these properly tomorrow, I said, setting down the pen she'd placed in my hand. Mum, the insurance filing deadline is midnight. If we don't get these notarized tonight, you could be liable for thousands in uncovered medical expenses. She produced a mobile notary, as if by magic, a nervous young man named Derek, who kept checking his watch. He's doing us a huge favor staying this late. The pain medication made everything feel distant, underwater. I watched my hand sign multiple documents. Tara's voice, a constant stream of reassurance about coverage gaps and Medicare supplements. The notary stamped each page with mechanical precision, barely meeting my eyes. There's one more, Tara said, sliding a thicker document from beneath the pile. This one's important. It ensures I can manage things if something happens, just temporarily, of course. Manage things, pay bills, talk to doctors, handle banking if you're hospitalized. After tonight, we can't take chances. Her hand covered mine, warm and seemingly protective. I'm trying to keep you safe. Mom, you've always been so independent. But even you have to admit. She gestured to my bandaged head. You're not invincible. The document was dense with legal language. My vision swam trying to pass the paragraphs. Buried on page 3, between healthcare provisions and insurance authorizations, were words that should have screamed warnings: durable power of attorney, immediate effect, all financial instruments and accounts. But I was tired, hurting, and my daughter's concern seemed so genuine. The young notary shifted impatiently. Tara's phone buzzed again. Grayson. Always Grayson, and her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Mum, please. Derek has another appointment. I signed. The notary packed up his stamps and seals with obvious relief. Gone by 10:30 p. Tara gathered the documents with the efficiency of someone handling negotiated contracts, not her injured mother's paperwork. She kissed my forehead, careful to avoid the bandage. Get some rest. I'll file everything tomorrow. She paused at the door, silhouetted against the porch light. You know I only want what's best for you. Right. After she left, I sat in my kitchen listening to the grandfather clock my husband had restored before the cancer took him. Something felt off, like a discordant note in a familiar symphony. I pulled up my banking app, a habit before bed, checking all accounts present and accounted for. Everything looked normal. $15 million spread across investment accounts, money markets, the careful accumulation of a lifetime's work. But in the morning, that would change. And my daughter, in her haste to grab what she thought was mine, would learn the most expensive lesson of her life: never underestimate a woman who spent decades protecting the vulnerable from their own families. The next morning started like any other. Coffee at 6:30 a.m. Medication for blood pressure. Quick scan of the Silverbrook Gazette online. Then my phone exploded with notifications. Not the gentle chimes of text messages, but the aggressive alerts from banking apps, the kind designed to wake you from a dead sleep when your financial world is shifting. First Commercial Bank. Wire transfer initiated. $3,200,000. Vanguard. Full account liquidation in progress. Morgan Stanley. Power of attorney access granted. Tara Whitfield. Charles Schwab. Security holdings transfer authorized. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate calm, though my hand wanted to shake. The notifications kept coming. A waterfall of my life's work being systematically drained. I opened my laptop, fingers steady on the keyboard despite the adrenaline surge. The banking portal loaded slowly, too slowly, and when it finally appeared, I watched in real time as numbers disappeared from my screens. 711A. The Vanguard Money Market, $4.5 million. Transferred to Whitfield Family Trust, LLC. 714A. M. Morgan Stanley Investment Portfolio. $6.8 million in mixed securities. Liquidation orders placed with expedited settlement requested. 716A. M. 3 separate CDs at First Commercial, totaling $2.7 million. Early withdrawal penalties waived due to documented power of attorney. 718A. M. Final sweep of checking and savings accounts. Even the small emergency fund I kept at the local credit union, $50,000, I'd tucked away in my late husband Robert's name. somehow also accessed. 7:18 and 45 seconds My phone buzzed. A text from Tara. Mum, consider this family money. It's better managed by people who understand modern markets. Grayson will grow it for all of us. I screenshot everything. Every transaction. Every timestamp. Every authorization code. My fingers moved with the muscle memory of decades of documentation. The same methodical process I'd used to track suspicious patterns at Ravenhill when staff members thought they could skim from resident trust funds. The phone rang. Grayson's number. Maggie, good morning. Good. His voice carried that salesman's enthusiasm that had always set my teeth on edge. Tara asked me to call and explain the investment restructuring we're implementing. Exciting opportunities in cryptocurrency and offshore emerging markets. I hung up. The doorbell rang at 7:35. Through the peephole, I saw Loretta Whitfield herself, holding what appeared to be a gift basket. Behind her, Tara's Mercedes idled in my driveway, my daughter visible in the driver's seat, checking her phone. I didn't answer. Maggie, dear, we know you're there. Loretta called through the door. We're family. This is for your own good. At your age, managing such complex finances alone, it's simply not prudent. I poured myself fresh coffee and opened my second laptop, the one I used for Ravenhill business, still configured with administrative access to various systems. My email to Ava Mallory was brief. POA exploitation in progress. 15 million transferred out in 7 minutes. Complete documentation ready. Please initiate emergency protocols we discussed. Ava's response came within minutes. On it. Do not communicate with them further. Recording everything. I was already ahead of her. The small security system I'd installed after Robert's death. Nothing fancy. Just cameras at entry points had captured Loretta's morning visit. More importantly, it had recorded Tara's visit the previous evening, including Derek the notary's hurried departure. By 8 a.m. I received an automated email from First Commercial Bank. As a valued Premier banking client, we're confirming the large transfer activity on your accounts per authorized POA documentation. If you have concerns, please contact our fraud prevention department. I called immediately. The representative, a young man named Marcus, sounded confused when I identified myself. Mrs. Hart, I show here that all transfers were authorized by your designated power of attorney, Tara Whitfield. The documentation was validated by our legal team this morning at 6:45 a.m. 6:45. Before the bank opens. A pause. It appears special arrangements were made for pre-opening processing due to the substantial amounts involved. Mr. Grayson Whitfield has premium business access. I see. And these accounts that received the transfers, can you confirm the ownership? I'm showing Whitfield Family Trust, LLC, established. Yesterday afternoon at 4:20 p.m. Yesterday. While I was being treated for a head injury, my daughter and her husband were establishing shell companies to receive stolen millions. The premeditation was breathtaking. My phone rang again. Tara, this time. Mum, you're being ridiculous not answering the door. Loretta brought your favorite tea from that specialty shop downtown. We need to discuss transition planning now that the assets are properly structured. Properly structured. I kept my voice level, almost curious. For tax purposes, Grayson says we could save millions in estate taxes with proper trust structures. You should be grateful we're being proactive. I see. and this required draining my accounts at 7 in the morning. A pause. Then, harder. The POA gives me full authority to act in your best interests. Given your fall yesterday, clearly you need help. If you keep being difficult, we might need to discuss more permanent arrangements. Loretta knows an excellent assisted living facility, very exclusive. Wonderful care. Of course, it would require liquidating your house to cover the costs. The threat hung between us like a blade. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. I understand perfectly. Tara. Good. We'll be back this afternoon with papers for you to sign. Retroactive gift documentation. Grayson says. Makes everything cleaner for the IRS. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the morning light streaming through windows Robert had installed the year before his diagnosis. $15 million, gone in 7 minutes? My daughter thought she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. Ava Mallory arrived at my house at 10:15 am, carrying a banker's box and wearing the kind of smile that had dismantled corrupt nursing home administrators across 3 counties. At 40, she was young enough to understand modern financial manipulation, but experienced enough to have seen every family betrayal imaginable. Before we discuss strategy, she said, setting up her laptop on my dining table, I need you to understand something beautiful about what's happening right now. Beautiful. They stole $15 million. No. Maggie. They think they stole $15 million. She pulled up a complex organizational chart on her screen. Let's review what you actually built 5 years ago when you came to me after Robert's death. The memories flooded back. Robert's final months, watching supposed friends circle like vultures, distant relatives suddenly concerned about our well-being. Even then, Tara had asked pointed questions about life insurance payouts and investment account beneficiaries. I'd known I needed protection, not just from strangers, but from blood. Layer 1, Ava began, pointing to the screen. The Heart Education and Dignity Trust, established January 2020. You are the grantor and lifetime income beneficiary. But, and this is crucial, you are not the owner. Redwood Community Bank serves as independent trustee, which means Tara's POA, even if it were legitimately obtained, can't touch trust assets. She can only access accounts titled in your personal name, Maggie Hart, individual. But she did access them. 15 million. From pass-through accounts. Watch. Ava pulled up bank statements. See these accounts at First Commercial, Vanguard, Morgan Stanley? They're all titled Maggie Hart. But look at the tax ID numbers. I leaned closer. The EIN numbers didn't match my Social Security number. These are nominee accounts held by Silverline Holdings, LLC, your Wyoming entity. The LLC is owned entirely by the Hart Trust. You have signature authority as manager, but you don't own the assets. It's like being a CEO versus a shareholder. You can direct daily operations, but you can't sell the company without board approval. So when Tara transferred the money, she created a massive paper trail of theft. The trustee at Redwood got alerts the moment transfers exceeded threshold amounts. Anything over 100,000 triggers automatic review. They've already frozen receiving accounts at Whitfield Family Trust LLC under suspicious activity protocols. My phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from Tara, 2 from Grayson, and a text from an unknown number that turned out to be Loretta. Maggie, be reasonable. No one wants this to become ugly. It gets better. Ava continued. The charitable remainder. Trust you established. Remember 20% of your estate flows to charity upon your passing. But more importantly, It has an anti-alienation clause. Any attempt to forcibly transfer assets triggers an immediate charitable distribution. Meaning, if someone tries to steal from you, the money automatically goes to the Silverbrook Community Foundation. Your daughter just triggered that clause with her unauthorized transfers. I sat back, processing this reversal. But she'll claim the POA gave her authority. Let's examine that POA. Ava pulled out the documents I'd photographed from the night before. See this language on page 3. Authority over all financial accounts and instruments. Seems broad, right? But Ohio law requires specific enumeration of trust powers. The word trust appears nowhere in this document. More importantly, she zoomed in on the notarization. Derek Paulson, Notary Public. His commission expired 2 months ago. What? I checked this morning. He failed to renew in January. Every document he notarized after that date is legally void. Your daughter hired an expired notary, probably didn't even check his credentials in her rush to get documents signed. The doorbell rang at 11:45 a.m. Through the window, I saw a process server, the kind Ravenhill used for subpoenas. That'll be for you, Ava said calmly. Tara's trying to get ahead of this. I accepted the papers. Emergency petition for guardianship, filed by Tara Whitfield, claiming I was mentally incompetent following a head injury and making erratic financial decisions. She's fast, Ava admitted, but predictable. I've already scheduled your competency evaluation with Dr. Sarah Hendricks at Cleveland Clinic for this afternoon. She's the state's leading neuropsychologist, testified in 3 Supreme Court cases. Her evaluation will be unimpeachable. This afternoon, how did you... I've been preparing for this since you first hired me. Maggie. You think you're the only client whose children got greedy. I keep a network of emergency responders ready. My laptop chimed. An email from James Morrison, Senior Vice President at Redwood Community Bank. Mrs. Hart. Pursuant to trust provisions and suspicious activity protocols, we've frozen all accounts receiving recent transfers from Hart-related entities. Legal documentation requested from receiving parties. Awaiting your instructions. One more thing, Ava said, pulling out a thick folder. The nuclear option, if you want it. 5 years of emails between Tara and Grayson, discussing your net worth, potential inheritance timing. And this is particularly damning a message from last month, where Grayson writes, "Your mum's fall could be the opportunity we've been waiting for. Last month, but I fell this week." Exactly. They've been planning for an accident to happen. The fall just gave them their opening. I stared at the email printout, dated February 10th, 3:50 p. If something happens to your mother, we need to move fast. POA documents are ready. Derek can notarize anytime, no questions asked. 15 million properly invested could set us up for life. Loretta has connections at Shady Oaks if we need the assisted living angle. My daughter hadn't rushed to my side out of concern. She'd been waiting for me to fall. So, Ava said, closing her laptop with a satisfied click. Ready to show them who really owns those accounts. I thought of Tara at 7 years old, crying in my arms after skinning her knee. The same child who now plotted my incarceration in a nursing home for money. Let's bury them in their own paperwork, I said. Ava's smile widened. That's the Maggie Hart I know. By the way, there's one more detail you should know. The Hart Education and Dignity Trust. Its primary beneficiary after your lifetime income interest isn't Tara. It's your granddaughter's educational trust ironclad until she's 25, with Redwood as perpetual trustee. Tara can't touch a penny, even after you're gone. The invisible walls I'd built were holding. Now it was time to close the trap. The family dinner was scheduled for 6 p.m. at my house, Tara's idea of neutral territory, though we both knew better. She arrived with reinforcements, Grayson in his $1,000 suit, Loretta draped in pearls and judgment, and surprisingly, my 10-year-old granddaughter Emma, clearly brought as an emotional shield. Grammy. Emma ran to hug me, and I held her tight, this innocent weapon in her parents' war. Why don't you go watch TV in the den, sweetheart, I suggested, but Tara intercepted. She should stay. Family decisions affect everyone. Tara's smile was razor-sharp as she positioned Emma at the dining table, a tiny hostage to guarantee my cooperation. I'd prepared carefully. The dining room looked normal, but Ava had installed recording equipment that afternoon, completely legal in Ohio, with one-party consent. My phone, tucked in my cardigan pocket, captured everything on backup video. Loretta took charge immediately, spreading documents across my grandmother's mahogany table like she owned it. Maggie, we're here to formalize what's already been done. These gift letters simply acknowledge that you've chosen to support your family while you're alive to see the benefits. How generous of me, I said, pouring tea with steady hands. 15 million in gifts. The IRS will be fascinated. That's why we need proper documentation. Grayson jumped in, his voice oiled with false expertise. Structured correctly, we can minimize tax implications for everyone. I've already invested a portion in emerging markets, exceptional returns expected. Which emerging markets? He faltered. Various cryptocurrency platforms. Digital assets are the future. Maggie, your traditional portfolios were hemorrhaging opportunity costs. I see. And these platforms, they're SEC registered. Well, the regulatory framework is still evolving. So you've moved federally insured assets into unregulated overseas exchanges. I kept my tone conversational, watching him squirm. Tara cut in. Mum, stop interrogating Grayson. We're trying to help you. After your fall, it's clear you need support managing complex finances. About that fall, I said, pulling out my phone. Emma, honey, could you get Grammy a glass of water from the kitchen? Once she left, I played the security footage from my garage, clear as day, an oil slick that hadn't been there that morning, spreading from a container barely visible behind my car. The timestamp showed 3:20 p. While I was at my doctor's appointment, someone entered my garage while I was out, I said calmly. Would you know anything about that? Silence. Then Loretta, smooth as silk. You're paranoid, Maggie. This is exactly the behavior that concerns us. Seeing conspiracies everywhere is a symptom of what the dementia you're planning to diagnose me with. I pulled out the competency evaluation. Dr. Hendricks had completed that afternoon. Perfect cognitive scores across all domains. Would you like to see the brain scan completely normal for a woman of 62 who built a multi-million-dollar career? Emma returned with water, and the adults fell silent. We ate dinner in venomous quiet, my granddaughter chattering about school while her parents plotted their next move. After dinner, Tara cornered me in the kitchen. Sign the gift letters. Mum, make this easy. And if I don't, then we proceed with guardianship. Loretta knows Judge Patterson personally. He's very sympathetic to families dealing with elderly relatives who won't accept help. Judge Patterson retired last month, I informed her. Judge Eleanor Pike took over his docket. She specialized in elder abuse cases before her appointment. Tara's face darkened. How do you know everything? Because I've spent 40 years in this town. Tara, real relationships, not Loretta's purchased influence. I dried a dish methodically. Your mother-in-law might know everyone's public face, but I know their private struggles. How many of them came to Ravenhill to arrange care for their parents? How many cried in my office about family members stealing from vulnerable elders? You're threatening us. I'm informing you. There's a difference. Grayson appeared in the doorway. Maggie, let's discuss this rationally. The money is already transferred. Banks don't reverse wire transfers without fraud charges being filed. Do you really want to accuse your own daughter of fraud? Think of Emma? Think of the scandal. You mean, think of your reputation? I corrected. How would your clients react knowing you stole from your mother-in-law? Prove it, he said flatly. The POA gives Tara complete authority. You signed it. While concussed, with an expired notary, surrounded by my daughter's lies about insurance deadlines that don't exist. I smiled at his fading smugness. Yes, I've done my homework too. Loretta swept in, the matriarch ready to deliver the killing blow. Maggie, dear, you're being selfish. That money could secure Emma's future, fund Grayson's business expansion, support real charitable work in this community. My foundations, not your pet projects at Ravenhill. Your foundations, I repeated. The ones where 90% of donations go to administrative costs. The charity galas that cost more than they raise, I have those financial reports too. Loretta, public record, fascinating reading. You bitter old woman. Grammy. Emma stood in the doorway, eyes wide. Why is everyone angry? I knelt beside her. Adult disagreements, sweetheart? Nothing for you to worry about? Tara seized the moment, pulling Emma close. Grammy's not feeling well. Honey, she might need to go somewhere for help soon. Like a hospital. Emma's voice trembled. Like a nice place where she can rest, Tara said, staring at me over her daughter's head. Where trained people can make sure she doesn't hurt herself or make bad decisions. The threat hung clear: comply or be institutionalized, with my granddaughter told I was crazy. I have a counter-proposal, I said, standing slowly. You return every penny by 9 a.m. tomorrow. In exchange, I don't file charges for fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. You're bluffing, Grayson said. I pulled out my phone, showed them the email from James Morrison at Redwood Bank, suspicious activity report, filed with FinCEN as required by federal law. Treasury Department will respond within 72 hours. You called the federal government on us. Tara's voice cracked. The bank did. Automatically. Transfers over $10,000 between related parties with POA documents trigger mandatory reporting. Didn't you know that? Grayson. Some financial expert you are. They left at 8:45 p.m. Emma waving goodbye sadly while her parents marched her to their car. Loretta paused at my door. You've made a powerful enemy tonight. Maggie. I've revealed one, I corrected. There's a difference. As their cars disappeared into the darkness, I called Ava. Did you get everything? She asked. Every word, every threat, every admission? Perfect. Discovery phase begins tomorrow. They're about to learn who really owns those accounts. I stood in my doorway, watching the empty street. The daggers had been drawn, wrapped in family velvet. Now it was time to show them that some cuts run deeper than blood. The conference room at Redwood Community Bank felt like a war chamber at 9 sharp. James Morrison, Senior Vice President, had assembled his team 2 compliance officers, the head of AML KYC operations, and a young woman from IT who'd spent the night tracing digital footprints. Mrs. Hart, Morrison began, sliding a thick folder across the polished table. What we've uncovered goes beyond simple, unauthorized transfers. Ava sat beside me, recording everything with Morrison's permission. Across from us, the bank's internal counsel looked grim. "Walk me through it," I said. The IT specialist, Rebecca, pulled up her laptop. The transfers initiated at 6:45 am. Yesterday came from IP addresses registered to Whitfield Strategies LP. But here's where it gets interesting. Grayson Whitfield pre-positioned the receiving accounts 2 weeks ago, opening them with minimal deposits to avoid scrutiny. Premeditated, Ava noted. It gets worse, Morrison continued. Or better, depending on your perspective. Mr. Whitfield sent emails to our private banking team, claiming this was a family restructuring for tax purposes. He specifically requested priority processing to avoid market volatility exposure. Rebecca clicked through screenshots. These emails came at 4:13 a, 4:37 a, and 5:22 a.m. He was up all night preparing, but he made a crucial mistake. He CC'd his mother, Loretta Whitfield, on the 5:22 email. I leaned forward. Loretta was involved from the beginning. See for yourself. The email appeared on screen. James, per our discussion at the charity gala, we need expedited processing for the Hart family transfers. As I mentioned, Mrs. Hart's recent health issues necessitate immediate action. Loretta Whitfield can verify the family situation if needed. Please ensure compliance protocols are flexible, given the circumstances. Flexible compliance protocols, Morrison repeated with disgust. That alone triggers federal scrutiny. We don't do flexible when it comes to $15 million. The head of AML, Marcus Chen, a detail-oriented man I'd known since he'd investigated fraud at Ravenhill, spread out transaction logs. The suspicious activity report has been elevated to priority status. The pattern matches classic elder financial exploitation, sudden POA usage, rapid asset transfer to newly created entities, family members as perpetrators. The Treasury takes this very seriously. What about the receiving accounts? Ava asked. Frozen as of 7:43 a. Yesterday. Morrison confirmed. But here's the fascinating part. When we notified Whitfield Strategies LP of the freeze, Grayson Whitfield immediately tried to wire the funds to 3 different offshore accounts, one in the Caymans, one in Cyprus, and one in Malta. He tried to run with the money. I shouldn't have been surprised. But somehow Grayson's immediate betrayal of even his wife stung. The wires were blocked, naturally. But it establishes intent to permanently deprive you of assets. That elevates this from civil to criminal. Marcus pulled out another document. We also found something else. Grayson Whitfield has been under FINRA investigation for 6 months. Suspicious trading patterns in client accounts. Your $15 million might have been meant to cover his losses. My phone buzzed. Tara. Texting frantically. Mum, Grayson's accounts are frozen. This is insane. Call off your dogs now. I showed it to Ava, who smiled. Discovery phase is working. They're panicking. Rebecca pulled up more data. There's additional evidence of conspiracy. Derek Paulson, the notary. He received $5,000 from Loretta Whitfield's personal account the day before your accident. Before my fall, the implications crashed over me. They paid him in advance. It appears so. We've forwarded this information to the district attorney's office. Morrison's expression softened slightly. Mrs. Hart, I want to apologize. Our morning shift manager shouldn't have processed those transfers without additional verification. Despite the POA, we've terminated his employment. Turns out he has a son who works at Whitfield Strategies. The corruption runs deep, Ava murmured, taking notes. Now, Morrison continued, we need to discuss your actual account ownership structure. Our legal team has reviewed the trust documents. The Hart Education and Dignity Trust. With Redwood as trustee, we have full authority to reverse any unauthorized distributions and pursue recovery. What about Tara's claim that the POA gives her authority? The bank's counsel spoke up. Even if the POA were valid, which it isn't, given the notary issue, it cannot override trust ownership. It's like claiming you can sell someone's house just because you have a key. Access doesn't equal ownership. Marcus's phone rang. He listened intently, then hung up. That was the FBI. They're taking over the investigation. Wire fraud across state lines, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and now potential RICO violations given the pattern of behavior. The FBI. I felt the room shift. This had escalated beyond family dispute. Grayson moved money through multiple states to obscure the trail. That makes it federal. Marcus looked almost sympathetic. Your daughter and her husband are about to have their lives turned inside out. Every financial transaction, every email, every text message, all subject to subpoena. Another text from Tara. Mom, please. Emma's crying. She doesn't understand why police are at our house. Police at their house. Now. Morrison stood. Mrs. Hart, we'll need you to sign some documents confirming you did not authorize these transfers. Our insurance will cover any losses, but we intend to pursue full recovery from the perpetrators, including criminal charges. That's up to the DA and FBI, but based on what we've seen. He shook his head. Your daughter and son-in-law are looking at serious federal charges. Your mother-in-law as well, given her involvement. I signed where needed, my hand steady despite the weight of destroying my daughter's life. But she'd made her choice the moment she'd paid a notary to participate in fraud. As we left the bank, Ava checked her phone. Local news just picked up the story. Prominent Silverbrook family under federal investigation for elder fraud. Loretta's charity reputation is about to implode. We walked to my car. Past the fountain Robert and I used to throw pennies in for luck. Ava, what happens to Emma in all this? You petition for emergency custody. With her parents facing federal charges, you're the obvious guardian. She paused. You did set up her trust to be untouchable, right? Completely separate, with Redwood as permanent trustee. Her parents can't access a penny. Then she'll be fine. Financially, at least. My phone rang. Unknown number. But I recognized the voice immediately. Judge Eleanor Pike. Mrs. Hart. I've reviewed the emergency guardianship petition filed by your daughter. Given this morning's developments, I'm dismissing it with prejudice and scheduling an emergency hearing regarding custody of the minor child. Can you be in court at 2 p.m? Yes, Your Honor. Good. And Maggie? I remember what you did for my mother at Ravenhill, how you protected her assets from my brother. Justice has a long memory. The line went dead. The machinery of justice was turning, grinding Tara's scheme to dust. But we weren't done yet. The real revelation who truly owned those accounts was still to come. The Silverbrook County Courthouse's Civil Division had never seen such a crowd for an emergency hearing. Word travelled fast in a small Ohio town, and the spectacle of Loretta Whitfield's family imploding had drawn every gossip, journalist, and curious onlooker within 50 miles. Judge Eleanor Pike had to move us to the largest courtroom, at 2 p. Precisely. Judge Pike entered, her black robes sweeping behind her like judgment itself. She'd prosecuted elder abuse cases for 15 years before her appointment. Tara's team had no idea what they were walking into. "We're here on multiple emergency motions," Judge Pike began, her voice cutting through the murmur. Whitfield versus Hart regarding guardianship, Hart versus Whitfield regarding asset recovery, and the state of Ohio's interest in potential criminal proceedings. I'll hear them jointly for judicial efficiency. Tara sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, William Brennan Loretta's usual legal weapon, a man who'd bulldozed through countless local disputes. But today, he looked uncomfortable. Grayson was notably absent, his attorney citing ongoing discussions with federal authorities. Loretta sat in the gallery's front row, her pearl necklace catching the light like a noose. Ava stood first. "Your Honor, we move for immediate dismissal of the guardianship petition and full restoration of all transferred assets. We have evidence of conspiracy, fraud, and elder exploitation." "Proceed," Judge Pike said. Ava began methodically. "Exhibit a medical evaluation from Dr. Sarah Hendricks confirming Mrs. Hart's complete cognitive competency. Exhibit B bank records showing pre-positioned accounts created 2 weeks before Mrs. Hart's suspicious fall. Exhibit C payment of $5,000 to Derek Paulson, an expired notary. The day before, said fall." Brennan objected. "Your Honor, these are circumstantial. I'll determine that." "Counselor, continue." "Ms. Mallory." Ava pulled up the timeline on a large screen. "At 3:20 p.m. on March 14th, someone entered Mrs. Hart's garage while she was at a medical appointment. At 3:25 p.m., security footage shows a suspicious oil spill appearing near her car. At 5:43 p.m., Mrs. Hart falls in that exact spot. At 9:15 p.m., while Mrs. Hart is medicated and concussed, Tara Whitfield produces a notary paid in advance to execute POA documents." Objection. Brennan stood. "There's no proof my client created that hazard." "Exhibit D," Ava interrupted, producing a receipt. "AutoZone purchase of motor oil by Grayson Whitfield, March 14th, 2:51 p.m. The same brand found in Mrs. Hart's garage." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Loretta's face had gone pale. "At 6:45 the next morning," Ava continued, "before normal banking hours, $15 million was systematically drained from accounts they believed belonged to Mrs. Hart. But here's where it gets interesting. Your Honor." Ava clicked to a new slide showing corporate structures. The accounts weren't in Mrs. Hart's individual name. They belonged to Silverline Holdings, LLC, wholly owned by the Hart Education and Dignity Trust, with Redwood Community Bank as independent trustee. The POA, even if valid, which it wasn't, had no authority over trust assets. Judge Pike leaned forward. Are you saying the defendants attempted to steal from a trust? Worse, Your Honor. They triggered the trust's no contest clause. Anyone who attempts to wrongfully take trust assets forfeits their beneficiary status entirely. Brennan scrambled through papers. We weren't aware of any trust. Ignorance isn't a defense to theft, Judge Pike noted dryly. Mrs. Whitfield, do you have anything to say? Tara stood, her designer dress wrinkled, makeup smeared from crying. Your Honor, I'm her daughter. I was trying to help. Mom is getting older, and after her fall, the fall your husband potentially orchestrated. Judge Pike's tone could have frozen flame. I didn't know about that. Tara's voice cracked. Grayson said he promised it was just about protecting the money from estate taxes. By stealing it? The judge's eyebrow arched. Please continue. Mum has millions she doesn't even use. She lives in that old house, drives a 10-year-old car, while Emma, my daughter, goes to public school. We just wanted our fair share. Your fair share of someone else's money. Judge Pike's voice dropped dangerously low. Mrs. Hart, would you like to respond? I stood slowly, meeting my daughter's eyes. Your Honor, the trust was created to protect assets for legitimate charitable purposes and my granddaughter's education, not to fund Grayson's failed investments or Loretta's social climbing. That's not... Loretta started from the gallery. Mrs. Loretta Whitfield, sit down or be removed. Judge Pike ordered. I haven't forgotten your attempt to influence this court through ex parte communication at last week's charity gala. The blood drained from Loretta's face. Brennan looked like he wanted to disappear. Now, Judge Pike continued, let's discuss the actual ownership of these assets. Mr. Morrison from Redwood Bank, you're here as trustee. James Morrison stood. Yes, Your Honor. The Hart Education and Dignity Trust has been the legal owner of these assets for 5 years. Mrs. Hart receives lifetime income, but the principal is designated for charitable purposes and educational trusts. The attempted transfer violated federal banking regulations and triggered multiple protective provisions. And the current status of the funds. Frozen pending this court's orders. The FBI has placed holds on all Whitfield-related accounts as part of their investigation. Judge Pike turned to me. Mrs. Hart, what are you seeking? Full restoration of assets to the trust, enforcement of the no contest clause removing Tara as a beneficiary, and emergency custody of my granddaughter Emma while her parents face federal charges. Federal charges. Brennan paled. Your Honor, this is a family dispute involving wire fraud, conspiracy, and potential attempted murder given the garage incident. Judge Pike stated. Mr. Brennan, I strongly advise your clients to seek criminal defense attorneys. This court lacks jurisdiction over federal charges, but I can address the civil matters. She began writing. The courtroom was silent, except for her pen scratching. Here's my ruling. All transferred assets are to be immediately restored to the appropriate trust accounts. The no contest clause is enforced. Tara Whitfield forfeits any current or future interest in the Hart trusts. Temporary emergency custody of Emma Whitfield is granted to Maggie Hart, pending criminal proceedings. The defendants are ordered to pay all legal fees and court costs. Your Honor, Tara cried out. She's my mother. How can she do this to family? Judge Pike's gaze was steel. The same way you did, Ms. Whitfield, only legally. She banged her gavel. Court adjourned. As marshals approached Tara with federal summons, she looked at me with tears streaming. "Mum, please. I'm sorry. Don't let them take Emma." "Emma will be safe and loved," I said quietly. "Her trust fund will ensure she gets the education and opportunities you tried to steal. As for you, you made your choice the moment you paid someone to help you rob me." Loretta rushed forward, but was blocked by security. "You've destroyed us," she screamed at me. "My reputation, my son's business." "You destroyed yourselves," I replied. "I just refused to be your victim." As we left the courtroom, Ava squeezed my shoulder. "Ready for the final revelation?" I nodded. It was time to show them who really owned everything, and it wasn't me. The conference room at Ava's law firm felt like a sanctuary after the courthouse chaos. At 4:30 p.m., we gathered for what Ava called the unveiling. Present were James Morrison from Redwood Bank, 2 attorneys from the State Attorney General's office, and, surprisingly, Margaret Chen from the Silverbrook Gazette, invited, because transparency would be my ultimate shield. Before we reveal the complete ownership structure, Ava began, pulling up documents on the conference room screen. Let's understand what Tara and Grayson thought they were stealing versus what actually exists. The first slide showed a simple diagram: $15 million in various accounts, all appearing to belong to Maggie Hart. "This is what any surface-level investigation would show," Ava explained. "What Grayson saw when he did his research, what Tara believed she'd inherit, but the reality." She clicked to the next slide, and the room collectively inhaled. The diagram exploded into complexity. At the center sat not my name, but Heart Care Endowment, a 501c3 charitable organization. Branching from it were multiple entities: the Heart Education Trust, Silverline Holdings LLC, the Charitable Remainder Trust, and something called the Dignity Initiative Fund. 5 years ago, I said, standing to address the room. After watching families destroy themselves over inheritance at Ravenhill, I made a decision. Wealth shouldn't be a weapon between generations. It should be a tool for community improvement. Morrison took over, his banker's precision cutting through emotion. The Heart Care Endowment was established with an initial $10 million contribution from Mrs. Hart's personal assets. She retained a lifetime income interest of $200,000 annually, comfortable, but not extravagant. The principal remains untouchable, designated for specific charitable purposes. "Which are?" Margaret asked, her recorder running. I pulled out the founding documents. 40% funds nursing education scholarships, specifically for geriatric care specialists. 30% goes to free legal aid for elder abuse victims. 20% maintains an emergency fund for Ravenhill residents whose families abandon them financially. The remaining 10% covers administration, real administration, not Loretta Whitfield's version where she pays herself to plan galas. So when Tara tried to steal the $15 million, she was attempting to steal from a charity. Ava confirmed. That's what triggered the FBI involvement. It wasn't just elder abuse, it was attempted theft from a federally recognized charitable organization. The penalties are exponentially more severe. The Attorney General's representative, David Kumar, spoke up. "This changes our entire prosecution strategy. Stealing from a charity that serves vulnerable elderly populations. No jury in Ohio will sympathize with the defendants." "It gets better," Ava continued, clicking to another slide. "Or worse, depending on your perspective. The Emma Whitfield Education Trust, established the day she was born, is irrevocably funded with $2 million. growing at market rate, accessible only for educational expenses until she's 25, then transferred to her control in stage distributions through age 35. Tara can't touch it, Margaret asked. No one can. Redwood Bank serves as perpetual trustee. If Emma's parents go to prison, the trust ensures she'll have everything she needs for the finest education available. Morrison pulled up projections. At current growth rates, she'll have approximately 4 million by the time she graduates college. What about the house? Margaret pressed. Your home must be worth 700,000 at current market value. I interrupted. It's held in a life estate. I can live there until I die, but I can't sell it. Upon my death, it transfers directly to the Silverbrook Historical Society. Robert and I restored that 1890s Victorian together. It deserves to be preserved, not fought over. The room sat in stunned silence. Finally, Margaret spoke. Mrs. Hart, you've essentially given away everything. You're living on 200,000 a year when you had 15 million. I'm living on more than most Americans dream of, I corrected. I have my home, my health, my granddaughter, and the satisfaction of knowing my money serves a purpose beyond enriching people who'd step on others to grab it. Kumar leaned forward. The defendants don't know about the Heart Care Endowment. They're about to find out, Ava said with a satisfied smile. Discovery documents go out at 5 p.m. today. Tara and Grayson will learn they attempted to steal from a charity serving the elderly. Loretta will discover her son tried to defraud the very population she pretends to support through her charitable work. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Emma on Mum's phone. Grammy, are you okay? Police took Mum and Dad. I'm scared. My heart cracked. Where's my granddaughter? Child Protective Services has her at their offices, Kumar informed me. The emergency custody order should process within the hour. I stood to leave, then turned back. Margaret, when you write this story, make something clear. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. Every dollar in that endowment will serve people who can't protect themselves. That's Robert's true legacy, and mine. Margaret nodded, already typing. What about Tara? Any message for her? I thought of my daughter, sitting in federal custody, her designer life crumbling. Tell her the trust documents were always public record. If she'd ever bothered to actually know me instead of calculating my worth, she'd have known. The money was never mine to steal. It already belonged to the community. At 5:45 p.m., I picked up Emma from CPS. She ran into my arms, crying. Grammy, I don't understand what's happening. I held her tight, this innocent casualty of her parents' greed. You're safe, sweetheart. You're coming home with me. For how long? For as long as you need. As we drove to my house, our house now, Emma asked quietly, did Mom really try to hurt you? How do you explain betrayal to a 10-year-old? Your mom made some bad choices. Honey, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Do you still love her, even after what she did? I thought about that question as we pulled into the driveway of the Victorian that had sheltered 3 generations of hearts. Love doesn't mean accepting harm. Emma, sometimes protecting yourself is the most loving thing you can do for everyone. That night, as Emma slept in Tara's old room, I sat in Robert's study reading the Foundation's mission statement, written in his wavering handwriting during his final months. Dignity isn't about wealth. It's about ensuring no one faces their vulnerable years alone. afraid or betrayed by those meant to protect them. The Heart Care Endowment would honor that mission, and Tara, Grayson, and Loretta would finally understand the real power was never in the money. It was in choosing who deserved to benefit from it. The trust had held. The fortune was safe, and it had never been mine to lose. The federal courthouse in Cleveland stood like a fortress against the grey October sky, 6 months after that night in my garage. Emma held my hand as we walked through security at 8:30 a.m., her small fingers trembling. She'd insisted on coming, on seeing her parents one last time before the sentences were handed down. The courtroom was packed. Federal cases involving charity fraud and elder abuse had become lightning rods for public attention, especially when the perpetrators came from privilege. Loretta Whitfield sat in the gallery, her empire of false charity dissolved, her society friends notably absent. She'd aged a decade in 6 months. Tara and Grayson sat at separate defendant tables. Their marriage hadn't survived the first week of federal investigation. Grayson had tried to flip on Tara immediately, claiming she'd masterminded everything. Tara had retaliated with recordings of Grayson planning to flee to the Caymans with the stolen millions. The FBI had thanked them both for the evidence. Judge Patricia Thornton, known for her harsh sentences in financial crimes, reviewed the final documents. Before I pronounce sentence, does anyone wish to make a statement? I stood. Emma squeezed my hand, but I gently freed myself and walked to the podium. Your Honor, I'm not here as a victim. The Heart Care Endowment lost nothing. The funds were recovered within 72 hours thanks to proper legal structures. I'm here as a mother who failed to teach her daughter the difference between wealth and worth. Tara's sob echoed through the courtroom. But I'm also here as a grandmother, I continued, asking this court to consider that Emma Whitfield needs at least one parent who might someday redemption. Whatever sentence you impose, please remember there's a 10-year-old girl who still loves her mother, despite everything. Judge Thornton nodded slowly. Mr. Whitfield, please rise. Grayson stood, his expensive suit replaced by a federal detention jumpsuit. Grayson Whitfield, you are sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and attempted theft from a charitable organization. Additionally, you are barred from any fiduciary position for life and ordered to pay restitution of $2 million to the Heart Care Endowment. He collapsed into his chair. Loretta let out a strangled cry. Ms. Whitfield, please rise. Tara stood on shaking legs, looking at Emma with desperate eyes. Tara Whitfield, this court has considered your cooperation with authorities and your lack of prior criminal history. You are sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. You must complete 500 hours of community service at elder care facilities and pay restitution of $500,000. 3 years, Emma whispered beside me. That's when I'll be 13. The judge continued. Mrs. Loretta Whitfield, while you were not charged with primary crimes, your conspiracy conviction stands. 1 year home confinement, 3 years probation, and forfeiture of all assets obtained through fraudulent charitable operations, approximately $4 million, to be distributed to legitimate charities. The gavel fell at 10:15 E. It was over. Tara was allowed a brief moment with Emma before being taken away. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered, holding her daughter. I'm so sorry. I know. Mom, Emma said, wise beyond her years. Grammy says when you come back, we can start over. If you want to. I want to. Tara said, meeting my eyes over Emma's head. Mum, I... 3 years isn't forever, I said quietly. The trust will pay for therapy, for education, for whatever you need to rebuild. But Tara, you have to actually rebuild, not just wait for another opportunity. She nodded, understanding that this was grace, not forgiveness. Those would be different journeys. As the marshals led them away, Loretta approached me. Stripped of her pearls and pretense, she looked like what she was, a frightened old woman who'd built her identity on stolen valor. You destroyed us, she said, but without venom now, just exhausted defeat. No, Loretta, I just refused to be destroyed. Outside the courthouse, Margaret Chen waited with her photographer. The story had won her a Pulitzer nomination, The $15 Million Trap, How One Woman's Foresight Exposed a Family's Greed. Any final thoughts, Mrs. Hart? She asked. I looked at Emma, who was watching leaves fall from the courthouse maples. In 3 years, she'd be a teenager. In 15, the trust would begin funding her dreams. In between, I'd raise her with the values Tara had somehow missed, that service matters more than status, that integrity outweighs inheritance. Just this, I said to Margaret. I didn't win anything. There are no winners when families implode. But sometimes, protecting what matters means letting people face the consequences of their choices. The Heart Care Endowment will help thousands of elderly people avoid what almost happened to me. Emma will have every opportunity to become whoever she chooses to be. And maybe, in 3 years, Tara will understand that the fortune she tried to steal was never about money. That afternoon, at 2 p., Emma and I stood in Ravenhill's new education wing, funded by the first distributions from the Heart Care Endowment. A bronze plaque read, "The Robert and Margaret Hart Centre for Geriatric Care Excellence." Was Grandpa like you? Emma asked. Careful and smart. No, sweetheart. He was better. He was kind. The careful and smart part I learned after he died, when I realized how many people would try to take what he'd left. I touched the plaque, remembering Robert's last words, "Protect what matters." Will you teach me? Emma asked. To be careful and smart and kind. Every day, I promised. As we walked through Ravenhill's gardens, past seniors playing chess and nurses studying in the new library, I thought about Tara in her federal cell. The money she'd wanted so desperately was working now, funding scholarships, protecting the vulnerable, building futures for strangers she'd never meet. The $15 million trap had closed exactly as designed, not to destroy my daughter, but to reveal her. And in that revelation, perhaps, lay the possibility of redemption. Emma and I headed home to the Victorian that would one day be a museum, but for now was filled with homework and hot chocolate, with a 10-year-old's laughter replacing the silence of betrayal. The fortune was safe, serving its purpose. The trust had held, and somewhere in a federal prison, my daughter was learning what I'd tried to teach her all along. True wealth isn't what you can take, it's what you choose to give. The sun set over Silverbrook at 5:47 p.m., painting the sky the colour of justice served cold. Thank you for listening to this story of betrayal, justice, and the ultimate protection of family legacy. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect with fellow listeners around the world. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of redemption and revelation. And please share your thoughts on Maggie's journey. What would you have done in her position?